There's the man they call Spider, Mark Lees, leading round one of St George Formula One, but the lead he had on the bike has been somewhat eroded as we get well into this run. Andrew Johns, waving his arms in the background there, is taking the pack slowly and surely up to Mark Lees. And that big bunch there behind, you saw the smaller figure of Chris Hill, Levi Maxwell putting in a bit of a sprint too, one of the young talents here in this series. That second bunch is going to be a formidable task for Mark Lees to overcome if he's going to hang on and win this race.
Well, it's Peter Robertson, actually, Billy, who's made the charge. He's come from a long way back out of transition to be leading the chase pack. Mark Fuel's down there as they go past you, Fuely. Peter Robertson's making a big charge.
Robbo the Rabbit is at it again.
Oh, here he
goes. The scary thing is that he is swimming a lot better this year. He can be very dangerous. I had him in my trifecta for this race, and he is charging after Mark Lees, and he's actually taking the rest of the pack with him. Chippy Slater now has dropped off, so has Low Toledo. I can tell you the pace is very hot. I'd say they'd be running sub 3 minutes for the kilometre, and another one who's dropped off the back is the youngster Brad Carlefeld, finding the pace very hot today, but they're really moving.
Yeah, he's really hurting, and what I like here, guys, is that Peter Robertson's going to hurt them all by doing this, because the pack know that they can't let him and Mark Lees get away. Andrew Johns leading the pack. You see Craig Watson, the New Zealand champion, up there. There's Miles Stewart, Chris Hill, Courtney Atkinson, Levi Maxwell and Chris McCormick. There seems to have been a definitive bunch form now. Bill, we've got about 10 guys all together.
And Shane Reed was really putting it in, trying to catch up with that bunch too. Sterling performance from Craig Watson there, number 16, has moved into second now, ahead of Mark Lees. There's Johnsy putting in a run too with Chris Hill. There's some very, very good performance in this group, and I'm almost certain that even at this stage, the winner will probably come from this leading group. But Robertson, he came sixth in this race last year, Mark, but he did come from a long way back. He really made his presence felt as we see Craig Watson about to go past him. He made his presence felt later in the race, and his wins last year were in sprint races.
Well, the thing is, he wasn't swimming as well, so he had to come from a long way back last year. The race has panned out a lot differently so far in this early stage. He had a good swim, and he's up there with him. It's Craig Watson now leading Peter Robertson. Third, Andrew Johns. Right with him, of course, Miles Stewart, Chris Hill, Courtney Atkinson, Chris McCormick up the back of that pack. And we've got Levi Maxwell there, Jan Rahula's in there, and of course, Brad Bevan.
Well, Craig Watson there on the left shoulder, on the right of your screen. Peter Robertson there, he is just tucked in behind him now. Andrew Johns makes a surge. Miles, Chris Hill, Jan Rahula up there too. And there's Levi Maxwell, you might notice, just struggling to keep up. Chris McCormack, likewise, is on the back of this pack.
Interesting to note that Mark Lees looks like he's dropped to the back of the pack as well, and that effort he put in on the bike leg may be taking its toll now. You see, the more you do this series, the more you realise you have to pick your moment when to go. It's no point going real early in the race many times unless you've got a few guys to actually go with. Mark Fuel, you and I have been watching this series for many, many years now, and you know that it's getting more tactical every year.
Yeah, it is, but what is changing is that every year there's more guys in this lead group during this run leg. Back in the first 3 years, it was always Greg Welsh, Brad Bevan, and then Miles Stewart when he joined the series. It was always those three and nobody else. And here we have 8 or 9 guys who are in the lead group, and youngsters like Peter Robertson, newcomers like Craig Watson, who, by the way, beat a lot of these competitors. He outran Andrew Johns a couple of times in the French Iron Tour last year, so he's really coming to the series with some pretty good credentials. And I can tell you that Mark Lees and also 97 world champ Chris McCormack and Levi Maxwell are off the back, and they are going to have trouble in the swim. And as usual, Miles Stewart is looking very good, and Jan Rahula looks very strong. Miles appears to be setting a pace a little bit, in that he's just sitting on the shoulder of the person in third, and I think Brad is hurting a little bit.
Well, Jan Rahula, good performance from him. Mark Fuel, I mean, he's 26 this year. He switches from the Czech Republic to Manly, depending on the season. He wants to be in summer all year round, and hasn't had a lot of top league form going into this race, but he was second in the Canadian World Cup leg and the ITU Series, 5th in the Goodwill Games, which was a very, very strong field.
Yeah, Jan has been in great shape ever since he did this series last year. He came over to Australia, trained down in Jindabyne with Andrew Johns, Greg Bennett and a few of the other boys, and it really improved him over that season. He was 5th in the Sydney World Cup at the end of last season, and this year he's come in saying he's not 100%, and here he is in the lead group, and he's mentally very tough. A few of the other competitors beforehand said, we don't know exactly what shape Jan is in, but we do know he's a tough competitor.
Well, you'll see that there are 10 guys in that lead pack, but really only 8 count. 2 guys have been lapped. Bryce Quirk and Marcus Keller have been lapped. It's Peter Robertson on the front. That's Andrew Johns right behind him in the blue uniform. On his right shoulder, on our left in the black, that's Craig Watson, the New Zealand champion. Behind him, Miles Stewart. Jan Rahula in white. On the right-hand side is Chris the Professor Hill. Brad Bevan second from the back, and at the back, looking like he's struggling to hang on, is Courtney Atkinson.
Yes, Atkinson, deceptively strong. He keeps coming and coming and coming, and as one of the young guys, he has quite a bit of experience because this is his 2nd year in the series. Australian junior champion last year for the 3rd time.
Well, the bell lap, Bill, and we see Peter Robertson, as he so often does, surges away. Interesting to see that, Fury. The last lap, I'm surprised that Chris McCormick and Mark Lees have actually dropped probably 10, 15 seconds back. They're going to do it real tough.
Well, those guys are gone from the top 5 or 6 places, I think, in this race. But Peter Robertson, to me, is playing mind games with Brad. Every time Brad has moved up to the front, he has run alongside him and then gone off the front. It's as if, like last year, he's saying, if I'm anywhere near you on the run, I'm going to go straight past you. I think he's out there enjoying himself. He's pushing it very, very hard. But as usual, Miles Stewart sitting there comfortably, and this second swim is going to be all important. But I think looking at the guys who are there, it's likely that those 6 or 8 are going to come out together.
Yes, Miles is in the box seat. There's no doubt about that. He hasn't spent too much. The bike leg would have been a cruise for him because of his skills, and he would have saved a lot of energy.
Well, this is going to be very exciting. 8 guys are going to hit the transition together to go into the swim. You'd have to say, if anything, Jan Rahul is probably the weakest of the swimmers. I'm not sure if Craig Watson's swimming form. He's fairly strong, and Peter Robertson also knows he's not quite as strong as some of the others, but they've really improved this season. This swim is going to be all important, Mark Field.
It certainly is. These guys are just swapping and changing. Chris Hill now has moved up into 2nd place. They're all taking some water in there as they come into the transition. It is going to be fast and furious, and every transition counts here. If you lose 2 seconds, that can be the difference between 1st and 4th place in here. Chris Hill is first out, Brad Bevan, Peter Robertson, Miles Stewart, Craig Watson, Jan Rahul, Courtney Atkinson's still there, and Andrew Johns. I think Courtney Atkinson will be the one to watch on this swim leg.
Well, how about the Professor Chris Hill, 8th in 3 rounds last year. His 3rd year in the series. Very strong runner too, Chris. He was 3rd in Noosa, 3rd in Nishigaki, 4th in Gamagori, 2nd in Auckland. So his form was right up there in the ITU World Cup Series.
Well, it's Peter Robertson about to dive into the water first. He probably wouldn't have expected it, and neither would have too many of his competitors. So he's in a very good position. This swim is going to sort it out. If any 2 or 3 guys can get away here, they can make a big result on the race. If anyone gets dropped, that could be the end of their day. You've got to stay with the pack here. 8 guys, you just have to be with them. If you're not with them when you get out of the water, your race is pretty much over.
Francis McDonald, they're making their way through very sloppy conditions on the shore there and just starting to get into their rhythm.
They certainly are. Since the last swim, the swell has picked up even more. So this is going to be a big test for the swimmers. The strong swimmers, I'm predicting, will come through. Is leading the pack at the moment. He's the smallest competitor in the field and waves with ease. Courtney Atkinson's up there. These conditions will suit him. Lives on the Gold Coast, loves the surf. Thriving in this. Coming up the outside is Brad Bevan. He's got a clean path. The others are in a pack, which makes to keep the pace right up. But Brad Bevan's taken a very clean angle away from the pack, and they're heading up towards the Blue Haven turning buoy.
Well, the turning buoy is on Brad's right. He's taken a cleaner path at the expense of probably a couple of metres, but that's typical of Brad because he's a very smart racer, and he won't mind that, because he often makes decisions that initially seem a little hard to fathom, but there's usually a lot of skill involved. We'll be back with more action from St George Formula One. St George Formula One Triathlon. This is the Enduro, the first round of 1999. And as we pointed out earlier, this is one of the biggest bunches we've seen that have a chance of winning the race. Formerly, there were a couple of legendary names out there. This year, not so. There are a number of guys who have the ticker and certainly the form to win this event. Spread out a lot on the swim leg. It's quite sloppy in there, particularly for those the European athletes who don't see a lot of swell when they do their usual swims.
Well, this bay is normally quite calm, but it's certainly not today. Very choppy. The wind's really picked up. It's tough conditions, and those 8 pretty much have stayed together. And guess what?